So yeah, thanks for thanks for hopping on here for sorry, I'm trying to figure out my screen view here, but oh, there we go. Perfect. But yeah, for those of you pretty much know Nate, Caleb hopping on here. Pretty much know all of you guys, but I'm Joe. And then I'm the co-founder of NJ122 Training. And then Nolan, you want to introduce yourself? I don't know if you know everybody on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, yeah, I know I see a few familiar faces, but my name's Nolan Sullivan, from Minnesota originally, but went to Omaha for school. Got to play hockey there at the University of Nebraska Omaha, and then my hockey journeys continued now to Kansas City, where I'm playing professionally currently, and running this business with Joe as well, and trying to help athletes take that next step and really maximize their potential. So super excited to hop on with you guys. And know a heart for us too is how can we support parents in the process of helping to raise not only great athletes, but also great, men and women. So that's a big goal. So we're excited to be on here tonight.
Yeah, 100%. And a huge reason why we wanted to do some of these calls is just to invite you guys in on the journey, right? And what we're doing. And Nolan kind of gave a little bit of background of just, hey, we want to raise up. We know that there's such a need of in this society and community today of what it looks like to be a good leader, to be a strong like woman and man of God, right? And so Jesus was the perfect example for us in that. And so now we want to kind of pay it forward and do our best that we can to steward the resources that he's blessed us with. And so the call tonight, we're really going to be talking about performance anxiety, specifically in athletics and what that looks like, and the way that culture is um, kind of now made it more of a thing and put more of a spotlight on it. But for a long time, it kind of was just something that slid underneath the surface, and it was something that athletes kind of just had to deal with and push through, and kind of just go with the like, hey, man up, or just hey, keep going, like keep pushing, keep fighting, and not really have the tools and the places where they could go to really work on it. And so I'm gonna share my screen here. Can everybody see that? Is that good?
Yep.
Good. Awesome. So yeah, kind of like I said, tonight we're going to be a resource just for you guys. And so at any point during the presentation, feel free to ask questions. I think there might be a setting where you can raise your hand or do something. I can only see one screen at a time. So if there is something that comes up, feel free to just shout it out. But the topic of again combating performance anxiety and from a parent perspective and then also from the athlete perspective.
Joe, it looks like your screen might be frozen here. Loading.
Mm, okay, is it still?
Nope, it looks like it's going now. And just for everybody on the call as well, I'm going to type in a little note sheet you guys can follow along with as well, because it will be a lot of info here. So something you can either use during the call or use afterwards as a resource as well.
And that'll be in the chat setting bar. So again, yeah, combating performance anxiety, more specifically in athletics. And so there's a couple definitions for performance anxiety because we know that it happens in more than an athletic setting, but it's often referred to as stage fright. Is the intense fear or not nervousness someone feels before or during an activity where they are being observed, evaluated, expected to perform at a high level. It is common in situations like sports competitions, public speaking, exams, or even social events. And so I think we've all kind of heard of performance anxiety in somewhat way, shape, or form. But really, when you get down to the core, what is it? And more specifically, in an athletic perspective. And so the true definition in athletics is very similar to the one in the umbrella for everything, right? Competitions, public speaking, exams, tests, social settings, something as little as talking to people. People get anxiety about that. But really, in the athletic world, the thing that stood out to me the most in that perspective is a lot of times the pressure is self-imposed. It's either self-imposed pressure of that the athlete has put on themselves if they have to live up to something or live up to a an idea or performance that they maybe think that someone is putting on them, but in the reality it's not. And so that makes it self-imposed or external, right? Sometimes the parent or the coach or a role model, somebody is telling them that, hey, you got to go do this, or you got to perform, or you got to put up the certain amount of numbers or a certain amount of points, blocks, steal, whatever it may be. And that would be the external factor. But both of these things can be detrimental, right? And hurt and negatively impact your athlete's focus, confidence, and overall performance. And that's why Nolan and I are so passionate about this topic, because as he mentioned at the beginning, our goal and part of why we're so passionate about this is we want to help the athlete, help the person, the man or woman to maximize their potential. And performance anxiety of any kind is going to really hinder that, because it's going to really help them to, or make sure they're lacking in focus, confidence, and it's really going to hurt their performance. So starting off here, there's just a really mind-blowing statistic of 90% of athletes, their least favorite part of the game or playing of any sorts is going home after. I thought this was really interesting. It's not losing, it's not the mistakes that were made, coaches yelling, disappointing those next to them, not looking ahead to the next game, maybe nervous about it. But it's going home and facing what maybe were those expectations, the expectations from themselves, having a space to maybe where they're thinking too much about what happened. Maybe it's the conversations that they have to have with their parent who's maybe coaching them, and they don't want to necessarily be coached, or they don't want to be necessarily talked to about what happened. And a crazier thing that was that this statistic was actually published this year in the state of Nebraska. And so it's starting to become more of an issue that people are recognizing and that people are wanting to talk about. And to really put it even more to more of a picture behind it is, if you were to go around and ask a hundred kids on a football team. Think of the teams playing in the state championship. The Bannisters. I know West Side's playing here in a couple weeks, but 90 out of 100 kids were to say that their least favorite part of the game is going home after. And so, what situations, what places are you creating at home for your athlete? What conversations are you having to assure that, hey, maybe they're not a part of that 90%, but they're a part of the 10 that's looking forward to going home after. And so tonight, to kind of put some tangible resources to things we can do to maybe be a part of that 10%, is we're really going to walk through some different tactics and techniques, to really break down performance anxiety and how we can kind of fight it and combat it in different ways. And so the P in perform, practice, relaxation, and Coach Nolan's going to take over here on some of these, but practice relaxation techniques, emphasize effort over results. So falling in love with the process, reframing mistakes as learning opportunities, right? Never take a loss, and don't think it's something that you can learn from. Focus on growth and progress, really pointing out the small wins, opening up communication, being vulnerable about what it is you're actually feeling. Reinforce a balanced schedule with rest. I say it all the time, and I'll say it again later, probably in the presentation, but I believe rest is a skill. And then mentorship opportunities and what it looks like to have a coach or a professional walk alongside your athlete.
Awesome, guys. So I'm going to hop over here for the first one. And the first one just talking about some practice relaxation techniques. And so the two biggest we're going to talk about is deep breathing and visualization. Both things I would say most people are probably familiar with, but most people probably don't necessarily implement. And I think when we start to implement it, we do truly see some of that power and some of the ability not only to transform that in our own lives, whether that be the workplace or with family, but also on the athletic field. So deep breathing, essentially what it is, nothing crazy or shattering here, but just taking time to slow down. I think when we think about our kids, especially in some of that anxiety that probably comes in because they're overstimulated, whether that be social media, some of those things where, hey, you're constantly having something to look at, constantly something to, put your brain onto. It's good just to slow down, to pause, to reset, and to get yourself back in a steady position. So a simple, pretty practical way to do this is just the box breathing method, which is breathing in for a count of four, holding for a count of four, and then doing a slow breathe out through a count of 6 to 8 breaths. Just doing this and taking time to one, like implement it yourselves. I think like your athletes, your children, if they see you doing this, they're going to be like, okay, maybe that breathing stuff is worthwhile, and it can be beneficial. And then honestly, like one thing we do on a lot of our calls with our athletes is making them do it with us. I think there's something to be said about, hey, it seems awkward until you do it. And we have so many athletes that are like, oh man, that breathing stuff's super weird. But then as soon as we do it together and break through that barrier, it's like, man, I've been implementing it before games through for routines. I have a lot of athletes that do it in the morning or before bed, and it helps them sleep. So there can be some huge benefits to implementing it into the routine of the day for our athletes. The next one would be visualization. And once again, another one that probably most people are familiar with, but once again, probably don't practice or implement nearly as enough as we need to. And so this can be something, once again, it's the start of the day where you just take time to say, hey, what do I want my day to look like? Really setting a positive intention. Another unique one, I would say that's really fun and cool activity that you can do with your kids is talk about a game that they had, maybe when they were younger or maybe last season, and they just like absolutely stood out. They played like the best game. They had a ton of success, and tell them to just take time to visualize that success of going out there. What did it feel like? One activity I take our athletes through is taking them through one of their best games and taking them through one of their worst games. And you can see it on their face during the best games. They start to smile, they get this little grin, they get this confidence, this somewhat swagger to themselves. And then as soon as we start talking about the game where they felt they came up short, they start, kind of body language change. They might kind of slunch down instead of being chest up. And so it's very interesting as we think about visualization, not only thinking about success for that game, but also thinking about the fact that, hey, they've proved it before in other environments. So just having them reflect on that past success can be super helpful as well. The next one is emphasizing effort over results. This includes celebrating the small wins and improvements and then using process oriented language. What that includes, celebrate wins, guys. I cannot emphasize this enough. We don't do this enough in our culture. I think, especially in the Christian world, sometimes it's really easy to, I would say, take the blame when things go wrong and say, hey, it's my fault. But then as soon as things go right, we kind of take it as, hey, the humble thing to do is to pass the credit on to somebody else. But specifically with your children, like, man, celebrate those wins, celebrate the things they're doing well. And that's not only just like, hey, they won a tournament or they're the star of the game, but celebrate that progress, celebrate those new skill sets that, hey, they might not even be the best at on their team, but they're taking little steps each day to just get better. That's something that often goes overlooked, and then they can kind of start breathing this doubt in. And so one practical way to do this is just like, hey, asking questions like you can see there. It's like, what's one thing you did better today? Or what's one new skill you tried? And you kind of shift the focus away from, hey, what was like the score of the game? What was the physical result? To like, hey, what were some like tangible things you actually did and actually processed and got a little bit better at today? In the next one, I think this feeds off the one we just talked about, but just the process language. I think so often we're focused on results, results, results. And I get it. Like winning matters at the end of the day. Like anybody who says winning doesn't matter, it's like, okay, well, it does. But within that, it's like there's so many things that can affect winning or losing. So when we only put an emphasis on winning, when we only put a focus on like, hey, what did my son or daughter do well enough today? It's like we kind of lose the heart behind why they do it. And I think a big core value for us, even at 12 too, is like we don't only want to help your sons and daughter become great athletes, but we want them to become great human beings. And that means learning the character, that means growing and just who they're becoming each and every day, and using sports as an avenue to not only glorify God, but also like kind of reach that God-given potential and ability they have. And so bringing them into the process can be huge. So some examples, once again, I'm proud you won. I'm proud of how hard you practice. I could see how much effort you put in. A simple shift in the way you word things and noticing the effort over the results all the time can be huge in helping your son or daughter on their journey, kind of to fight against some of this performance anxiety. And then the last one I'll talk about before passing it over to Joe is just reframing mistakes as learning opportunities. So just seeing mistakes as part of the learning process and encouraging a next time mindset. I love that quote. It's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. Joe and I just got off another call where we were talking about integrity, and a big part of that is like, hey, we can be our biggest critic sometimes, but criticize yourself to the point of improvement. When we just point the finger at ourselves and say, hey, you're not good enough, or you're coming up short, like it's really easy to get into our own heads and just say, hey, I don't measure up, I don't add up. But when we can criticize to the point of improvement, now we're actually taking those things we maybe slipped up on, things we're not fully there yet, and we're just finding that next step of how to get there. So first off would just be learning from mistakes. I love how this is normalizing mistakes as a natural part of improvement. I think too many athletes today put such a high pressure and such a high standard, whether that's coaches, whether that's parents, whether that's social media. There's this like pressure of perfection. And I think the faster we can admit, hey, we're not there yet, like we have to keep getting better each and every day, it helps normalize it that, hey, mistakes are a part of growing up, mistakes are a part of improving. The less fearful kids feel about making the mistakes, the more likely they are to try new things. And that's what we want at the end of the day as coaches, as parents. We want our kids to feel comfortable taking that step, being out there and risking it. My coach at Omaha used to always say, those who are comfortable being uncomfortable are not only the bravest, but they rise the fastest. And that's something I claim to all the time because I'm like, man, if we can be comfortable being uncomfortable, there's no stopping what our kids are capable of and what they have the potential to do. And we can just be that vehicle that helps drive them there and supports them in that. Um, and so I think this feeds once again into this next time mentality. And a big teaching point, I guess, on my end on this one is it's not just saying like that the mistake made or what they had going on. It's not that it didn't matter, and it's not that it maybe didn't have an impact on the game, but it's that, hey, mistakes happen to everyone. So what can we learn from it and be better at the next time? We teach this technique called neutral thinking. And a big part of that is how can we take mistakes and turn it into a neutral thought so that we can just figure out the next practical step forward. And so too often we kind of dwell on mistakes. We just think that like, hey, it's the end of the world. Hey, I screwed up too badly. Hey, my teammates think less of me. The more we can start seeing those as opportunities of, hey, I may have messed up this time. I may have fallen a little short, but next time I will do this. It really puts us in a better place to succeed moving forward. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Joe here to continue on.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, awesome stuff there. But it is like Nolan said at the very beginning, it's a ton of information. And so just want to reiterate and hit on again that the the note guide that Nolan has provided, it's in the chat. And so just feel free to take notes on that or keep that in the back of your mind and ask questions if something pops up. Because I do know it's a lot of information and we're going fast. So just wanted to throw it out there again. But just, yeah, so the F in the acronym, right, is focus on growth and progress. And so there's tracking progress over time and there's reflecting on growth regularly. And I love this quote too. It's every day is a new opportunity to be better than you were yesterday. Focus on growth and not perfection. Progress is the real success. And I think what Coach Nolan even talked about in one of those other letters was the process. And we just got off a group call where we were talking about, right, integrity and falling in love with the process. And so that's where tracking progress over time comes in. And like Nolan said, achieving, like keeping record of your achievements, celebrating the small things, no matter how small it is, right? Visible progress will build confidence. It'll help your kid, your athlete want to keep coming back time and time and time again. It's the little things, right, that add up over time. It's maybe keeping a journal or a chart or an app or something to track different things, different achievements, whether that's they had a really good practice, a game, they won the championship, they achieved the goal, whether that be short term, intermediate, long term, whatever it is. I think this is a really good tool for you guys and them, right? For them to keep a journal or a chart or something in their notes on their phone. That's what I do with a lot of my athletes because their phones are always in their pockets. They're always accessible. And so I tell them, hey, jot stuff down, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually that you're feeling. Track it in your phone. Come back to it at the end of the day. How was the day? Did you have wins? And it's a really tangible way to track it. And then even for you guys, like keep a journal of things that your kids do well. And so that when they are maybe down in the dumps or it is maybe they're seeing lack of progress, come back to it. Pull out that journal, and then you can come to them with certain things of, hey, I know it's not really going your way right now, but you did this really well just a couple weeks ago. Like, think back and dwell back on that. Huge wins of tracking progress over time. And I love this example down here. Actually just was talking to Nolan about it a little bit ago, but just running as an example of being process driven. I started running this year, and if you were to ask me if I like running, I would say no, I don't like running, but I love the process because it's so easy to track over time. Because at the beginning, I couldn't run but 3 miles. It's like I'd be dying. But now I can run 6, 8, 9, 10, 13. Like, I can run pretty consistent. It's so easy to track. And so that's just a really good tangible picture of what tracking progress over time can look like. And so the next one in that would be reflect on growth regularly. And that's where that journal almost comes into play, is it gives you a really an example of something that you can go back to and look at the wins. Pausing to reflect on what you've learned or improved. That really produces a growth mindset, and it gives you and the athlete a chance to recognize their hard work. Because we know in a lot of the times when they're going through the performance anxiety, or they're maybe down in the dumps, they're not focusing on what they did well, or the wins, but they're really focusing on where their feet are, and where their feet are, they're maybe dealing with a lot of negative emotions, a lot of negative thoughts, um, on whatever it is. Maybe it's the expectations that they put on themselves. Maybe it was a bad game, something a parent said or a coach said. But the reality is they're not probably reflecting on the good. And so we need to be, as parents, as coaches, the ones who bring them those. And so setting aside time to really pause and reflect. And I love this thing at the bottom that says you can go through anything, but if you don't take time to reflect on those things, then how are you going to learn from them? We can walk through the hardest of things, we can go through the hardest of battles, but if we don't really take time to pause and reflect on what that did for us, how are we going to learn from it? And so it'll build, as it says here, it'll build self-awareness and motivate us to just continue to get better every day with a growth mindset. And so this one I think is very, very important. And I think looking back on even my athletic career, wish would have been even more, is just open communication about feelings. Categories of asking open-ended questions and listening without immediate solutions. And so the open-ended questions, I think I'm going to start down here, is what is the most commonly asked question in our society today? I don't know this for a fact, but I would probably say it's how are you? And I know for a fact that most people say yes or no, and then they just walk away. And nobody really cares or goes beyond that. And so asking open-ended questions to your athlete, to your son, to your daughter, more than a simple yes or no, that will allow them to share what they're truly feeling or going through or walking through, where their feet are at. So it's asking questions like, what was the best part of your day? Was there anything that made you feel frustrated? Again, this approach helps them to feel like they maybe have a safe space to share, or they're being asked about it, someone's wondering about it. I feel like most of the time that kids or athletes or just people in today's society don't bring things to the table because nobody really asks. And so creating that environment, creating that space to where you guys are asking them intentional questions. One fun thing that we do, or that we used to do at Switch, which is our youth ministry, is I used to just ask the kids straight up at the very beginning, what's a buffalo for the week? And for those of you who don't know what a buffalo is, it's just something crazy that happened, something out of the ordinary. It's something that is not a yes or no question. It's not a, hey, how are you? Good. And then walk away. It's, no, what was something crazy or out of the ordinary or fun that happened this week? And I think it really sets the tone of showing them that you care, and that you're going to be there. And so, because the reality is, when they're going through, again, performance anxiety, they're going to be feeling, I mean, nervous or kind of shut down or timid. And so it's asking them the questions that are really setting up the pedestal to answer with more than just a yes or a no or a good. My brother, not gonna shout out my brother, but my brother is the king of just good. How are you? Good. What'd you do today? Nothing. And so really asking intentional questions. And so asking questions, yes, but sometimes we need to listen without an immediate solution. Um, and so this means maybe just asking the question, yeah, the deeper question that sets up how are you feeling, how are you doing, what's going on, but not feeling like we have to have all the answers, but rather that we can just be a support system for our athlete. Because the reality, we wish we had the answer key, we wish we had the toolkit to fix everything, but the reality is we don't. And so practice active listening by just, hey, nodding your head, making affirmative comments, letting them know that you maybe can't necessarily feel exactly what they're feeling, but you can be there for them and let them know that you're here to walk with them. I know one thing that it stood out to me. It was in a podcast about performance anxiety, and it said a lot of parents in the midst of their kids feeling it after a game or they're walking through something tough is they say, I'm proud of you. Um, but it always follows like the game, or it always follows a practice. It always follows something that they did. In reality, that like almost puts more pressure on the kid because they think they have to do something to earn the I'm proud of you from their parent or from the whoever it is that's telling them that. And so sometimes we just need to be there and listen, to be a or to be their cheerleader, or to be a pat, give them a pat on the back, or to give them a hug, or to just let them know that we're there and we're gonna listen without necessarily acting like we have all the answers. This next one is reinforce a balanced schedule with rest. So prioritizing downtime, set up, can be consistent in your bedtimes and when you wake up. I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it. Rest is a skill. And I'll say it because I struggle with rest. I think it's easy to just keep going and run and run and run. And even when you're laying down, you just let your mind continue to think and think and think. But sometimes we just need to chill. We need to take a step back and we need to pause. Sometimes we need to schedule it in. Schedule in, hey, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be. Maybe it's the gym, maybe it's go for a walk, go for a run. But all of this, it says right here, it's something that aligns with your interest, allows you to recharge, reduces stress, prevents burnout. Um, I can tell you rest is a skill and I'm working on it and I'm being forced to right now. I'm in a boot um, from running. I just was running too much and just training too much and ended up with a stress fracture in my foot. So body was telling me to rest and I indeed did not rest. And so this is a skill that I really need to work on, and it's a thing that I really try and prioritize with our athletes too, because a lot of times we don't really know what rest looks like. I think it's easy to say, "Oh, I took a nap today," um, and categorize that as rest. But the reality is you can wake up from a nap and feel more like more anxiety or more tired because you realize, oh, I have all these things that I need to get done now that I just wasted an hour doing. And so it's really finding things here that are aligning with your interest, getting out and doing them and giving your brain really a break to rest, prioritizing downtime. And so rest falls under these categories of just consistent bedtimes and wake up times. And this is one area we have all of our athletes fill out kind of a form when they are onboarded, and it talks about just how many hours of sleep you're getting, just different areas of just rest and recovery. And almost zero say that they get 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And so part of it is the phones, part of it is just staying up too late, part of it's the new Netflix, the Cobra Kai that just came out that my brother is all hyped up about, trying to get me to watch. But it's all these things, all these distractions, whatever it is that's preventing them from getting sleep and rest. And we know that that is crucial for not only physical recovery, but mental focus and emotional resilience. And when we're talking about performance anxiety and really all the things that that roots under, emotional resilience. Like if you have no rest, if you're not having giving your brain, your body time to recover and rejuvenate, it's going to be a lot harder to push through the day, and really kind of put on a face or a mask of something that you may be feeling. And so we need to rest and recover and really emphasize it. And so setting consistent times, to maybe where you're putting the phone up, 9 o'clock hits and hey, I'm gonna put my phone up and I'm just gonna go lay down. Might not fall asleep right away, but at least I'm kind of shutting off, excuse me, shutting off the lens of Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever it may be. So setting consistent times. And then the last one is mentorship opportunities. Normalize and encourage asking for help was a big one. And then choosing the right professional together. And so I think Nolan and I both have said it plenty of times in here, and a culture today that kind of is emphasizing performance anxiety, mental health more than ever. It didn't really used to be like that. It used to be, hey, keep pushing, keep going, keep your head down. I think I can think of a lot of former teammates and really some of my best friends that struggled in this area a lot, that they had coaches and parents kind of in their corner, really telling them that nothing was wrong. And it stinks. It stinks to see how like some of those things played out, knowing that today it's talked about more. It's still probably not talked about enough. It actually, for a fact, I know it isn't talked about enough. But it's really, how do we combat that? And how do we combat performance anxiety is normalizing and encouraging our athletes, our kids, to ask for help. And so kind of goes back to setting that environment to where they feel like they can come to you. And so talking openly about times when you've sought out help, whether it's physical, academic, emotional. You might say sometimes we need extra help to feel our best. Letting them know that, hey, you guys as parents aren't robots. Like, you guys have been through stuff. You guys are continually going through stuff, right? You don't need to tell your kids everything, but letting them know that, hey, it's normal that you're feeling this way, and providing them with tangible steps and resources and encouragement to help walk them through it. And so in a culture that otherwise is normalizing, um, in a culture that says, hey, don't ask for help, no, we need to normalize asking for help. And it's our jobs as parents, as coaches, to set that example. And so if it does come to choosing the right professional, whether that be a coach, a therapist, a mentor, somebody who it is, a counselor, really involving your athlete, involving your son, your daughter in that, and helping them feel that, hey, it's nothing wrong. Like, it's not a there's such a stigma around mental health and seeing a counselor or seeing a psychologist or um, whoever it is, whoever it may be, but letting them know that, hey, this is okay. Like, this is good. Like, you're gonna grow from this. You're gonna learn from this. You're gonna get better from this, and helping them kind of make the decision as well, like who they're gonna go to, who they're gonna talk to, who they feel comfortable with, and really inviting them in on the decision, and not just you making the decision for them. Because a lot of the times when you try to make a decision for your kid or your athlete, it probably makes them not want to do it that much more, being totally honest. And so just including them in on the process. And so I think with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Coach Nolan.
Yeah, no, awesome stuff. Yeah, so just a review, I think you guys have that layout. I won't go through and read all of these again. But I just think one of the biggest takeaways is one, kind of to Joe's last point, just like starting to normalize this too. And I think one of the healthiest ways we can go about this is just having that. I love that open communication point. I think that's huge and something I really have like worked on with my parents as I've grown and like gotten to these higher levels, just understanding like, man, when we can be just really transparent with what we're feeling, what we're going through, what we're processing, like it's a lot. And I just think no matter what age your kids are, whether that be, you know, middle school or high school, it's like, man, there's so much peer pressure. There's so much expectation. There's so much just being thrown on their plate, that they're going to have that weight. So the more space they have to just be able to communicate clearly with you guys and just be open and honest, I think the better off everyone's going to be. And so with that, yeah, I would love to just close and just kind of open it up. Like I said, that was a lot of information. So if anybody has a question, I would say feel free to unmute yourself and to ask that. Um, Otherwise, too, if the professional help route is something you're looking for, yeah, what Joe and I do is really just come in and we want to be not only great coaches, performance coaches for your son or daughter to help them really maximize their potential as athletes, but also as we alluded to earlier, we just want to be in their corner. We want them to know they have somebody who just supports them for who they are. And I think one of the things we like to reiterate is that you can have the greatest parents in the world, and sometimes they're just be at that age where they choose not to listen. And so sometimes just having another positive influence, somebody they can look up to and turn to when things get tough, whether that be, I've had an athlete call me because, he broke up with his girlfriend and just needed to talk through it. I had an athlete whose dog passed away, and, he wanted to talk through it. And so it's funny, like you do have the sports situations where there's things that come up and, hey, you're in a slump or you're struggling with performance anxiety, but then there's these other life aspects as well. And so what we love doing is being able to support our athletes from all aspects and all directions, and just being their number one fan and being in their corner. So if that's of interest, feel free to reach out to this email kind of listed there, or to Joe or myself. Our contact info is also on that note sheet. But yeah, for the last 5-6 minutes, I would love to just kind of open it up for any questions you guys might have based on the content.
Can you talk more about just like what your services look like in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two different packages as of now. The first package is kind of our gold package that involves a lot of the one-on-one coaching. So that'd be 2 calls a month, working directly with either Joe or myself. And then we also do have a female coach as well that works with all our female athletes. She's actually a former volleyball player at Loyola. And so within that, we actually have an app built out that we put all our athletes onto. So that's kind of where we communicate with them, work with them. We would do Zoom calls like this on the one-on-ones, and then we also offer group calls as well, where we bring in some guest speakers who are, have gone through the process, are going through the process, whether that be college athletes, pro athletes, and get to hear some of their wisdom on the topics as well. And then I would say another cool addition on that app is we also not only support our athletes from the mental side, but also from the physical side. We do offer free nutrition plans, mobility plans, and workout plans. That's kind of all grouped in and included in those packages. So does that kind of answer that question? Awesome.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just a second, what Nolan said, we do have like the gold package that does include more of the one-on-ones, and then we do have the package beneath that one is the silver package, and it includes everything with the group calls, the nutrition plans, mobility plans, lifting plans, but it's not the one-on-ones, but you still get the app access and everything, and so you're getting communication with us, the coaches, but just to differentiate the two. The gold and the silver, the difference between there is the one-on-ones essentially.
Awesome.
Are the sorry, this one's from Mike. He just asked if the workout plans are like sports specific.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yes, they are. I would say each of our athletes, just knowing what sport they play, we can kind of design it and tailor it specifically to their needs. So I would say yes to not only the sport specific, but also if there's specific goals. Like we've had some athletes who wanted to throw on weight because they're heading to college, but we've also had the flip side where we've had some athletes want to actually slim down. And so really building it not only to their specific sport, but also to their desired goals within that. The other thing I would add too is actually that mobility. Some of those mobility plans have been incredibly helpful, especially for athletes that have struggled with some injuries and trying to recover and get back to their full potential from that standpoint. Awesome. Perfect. Any other questions, guys? Awesome. Well, once again, to Joe's point, I think especially on a Monday night, you guys have tons of things going on with family and just getting situated for the week. So thank you guys so much. I think it takes a group effort, whether it be partnering with a company like us, but just honestly having good people in your kids' corners, I think is so crucial. So we're just excited that you would share this time with us, allow us to hopefully speak some tangible wisdom and nuggets that you guys can take and really apply to the lives of your sons and daughters and your athletes, and then even just in coaches roles and all that good stuff too. And so one thing I do want to mention before we hop off is we actually are offering a free master class for athletes. So if you have a son or daughter who's interested in like, okay, what would it actually look like to train with you guys? We're offering that next weekend, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Each night will kind of contain a different topic, a different avenue. So say your son or daughter can only hop on for one of the three or two of the three, that's totally okay. But it would be awesome to really get them on and get them experienced for what it would look like to really hop on a call with us and to train with 12-2 and just be a part of our community. So if that's of interest as well, just wanted to throw that out there. Once again, that's Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week from 7 to 8. So same thing. If you guys just want to shoot us an email, we can help you get registered for that. So with that being said, yeah, thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your night. And yeah, we look forward to hopefully doing another parent call here sometime soon. So appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you
Absolutely.
guys.
Hold
You want to end the recording?
yeah, give me 2 seconds.